Hello everybody, it's WJ here and welcome to a brand new City Skylines series. This series will be about recreating the Netherlands, or to be more specific, the northern part of the province of North Holland. I've called this series the Noord because of two reasons. First, there is an actual village called the Noord and it looks like this. A simple straight road with some houses, farm fields and a lot of greenhouses next to it. Second, the whole area surrounding the village is also popularly called the Noord by the people living in the vicinity. Now, why did I choose this area as inspiration? Because, in my humble opinion, this area is as Dutch as it gets. On the left here, next to the sea, we have the dunes, protecting the land from the sea. The three major cities in this area, Alkmaar, Hoorn and Enkhuizen, are canal cities. Everything in between is pretty much polder. And these polders are actually the oldest polders of the Netherlands. Here they invented how the Netherlands looks nowadays. For my build, I imagined that the Zijpe, which nowadays is a polder, still exists as a large hole in the dunes where the Rekeren, a small river, flowed into the North Sea. The city will be located at the point where the river flows into the estuary. Now, let's go to the time-lapse and start placing down some roads. This first road I'm placing will be the sea dike, protecting the land against the North Sea. I delete this part of the road to create the river mouth, although there will be nothing natural about it. The river itself will be turned into a large canal, just as they have done with the real-life river, which is nowadays a part of het Groot Noord-Hollands Kanaal, the Great Canal of North Holland. By the way, in Dutch there are a lot of different names for different bodies of water, where in English they all have the same name. So throughout the series I will at times use the Dutch names to explain their function in a more specific way. For example, a kanaal is a large canal, mostly situated outside cities, built for ships to travel from one body of water to another, where a gracht, also called a canal in English, is within a city and has been built to claim land, protect the city and serve as a form of sewage. I guess water is for us Dutchies as what snow is for an Eskimo. But back to the roads I'm placing. For this city I'm laying out right now, I took most of my inspiration from Enkhuizen, which is a small coastal city. Although nowadays it's on the banks of the IJsselmeer, the lake that used to be the South Sea, but has been enclosed by a dike, the Afsluitdijk, to protect the land against flooding. I already placed the beginnings of the first expansion, and now I'm working out the oldest part of the city. Just below that little bended road will be the first canal. When you look at these Dutch canal cities, you'll notice that there is usually a small area with a more random road layout, the rest being more grid-like. This is because here, in this part of Holland, the oldest part of a city like this was built on a sand ridge, an old dune, and the areas around it used to be swampland, being around or just below sea level. So they dug canals, and with the dug up soil, raised the land next to it, to create new land to build upon. So the canals and these new areas were really planned out, and the road layout as well. Therefore, when you look at the road layout of most canal cities, most areas have a grid pattern. Now, let's start digging our first canal. I use Ronix's terraforming network to lower the land as close to the road as possible. Because when using the regular in-game terraforming, there is quite a gap between the road and the water. And we want our roads to be right next to the canal wall. Also, I'm not using the in-game canals, because they are too wide for my liking, and I can change the shape of the canal more freely this way. I upgrade the roads to pedestrian roads, because they are nice and small and can form bridges. Also, because they are flat, without sidewalks, I can later place some ploppable pavement on top to cross the small gap between the canal wall and the road. But I'll show that to you within a few moments. First, we have to create the canal walls. To do that, I take the regular cube for the procedural objects mod, and use my own custom texture to get that old weathered brickwork look. I'm placing it just on the edge of the road to get the rotation right. I want to place it as close to the road as possible. To get the wall on a good height, I place some ploppable asphalt for reference. With the PO mod, I place it just on top of the road. At first I copied the asphalt, so I could place some decals on top later on. But there are no decals that I find really fitting, so I'll replace them in a few minutes. Now I move the wall piece next to the bridge and adjust the height so it is just above the asphalt, to get that original Dutch canal look. I didn't like the top of the wall, so I add a second PO cube with a slightly different texture, so I can hide away the ugliness. You don't always need bushes for that. I'm making it quite a bit smaller, and then try to align it to the other wall part as best as I can. After I'm satisfied with the rotation and the height, I copy it before moving so I can press the H button and keep it at the height it was on. It's all pretty time consuming, but the result is so nice. So let's copy and paste the wall section all along this stretch of road. And over to the other side of the canal. Now it's time to place some buildings. First I remove the asphalt, so it's not blocking my view of the road, as I want to place the buildings right next to it. Aside from the city, I place some roads with all the buildings I intend to use in this build. This way I can easily find and copy the right buildings around. I will not show you how I select and place every building, otherwise this episode would have been 2 hours long and boring as hell. The buildings I'm using are the Amsterdam buildings by Epic Lurker, the Dutch buildings and some of the Euro buildings by Feindbild, a lot of the Belgian and French buildings by Lost Gecko, the corner buildings by Axel Kieboms, and some of his older residential buildings that I gave a new texture myself to make them look even more Dutch. I'm not done with the collection for this series, but it will be coming soon. At the moment, I'm not feeling terribly well. I'm still experiencing a bit of a cold. At these times, I like to drink tea. A lot of tea. A disadvantage of drinking lots of tea is that you have to pee constantly. So I'll be right back. And here we are again. It's road texture time. When you have ever been to an old Dutch canal city, you will have seen that in the center the roads are all paved with small red bricks. But in my opinion, the decals on the workshop do not have the look that I want to achieve. So I've created my own texture, so I can place it with the PO squares. In hindsight, it would have been better to use the same cubes I used for the walls, because when editing the dimensions of the squares, the texture gets all wonky. No matter if you set the texture to stretch or repeat. With the cubes this does not happen. But I found out about that after I had been working on the city for a while. So in most places I just use these squares. And for the transitions between the different roads, I'll be using the cubes later on. And now it's bridge building time. I'm using the railway viaduct props by Topsen. Sadly, they are a bit dark, but they have the best shape for the job and I can edit them with PO just the way I want. Because this needs to be a humpback bridge, of course. So I add a node in the middle of the bridge and raise it with Move It. And now the tedious process of adjusting the bridge prop to my needs begins. With trial and error I select the right nodes and raise them to a good height. I'm sorry for all the camera wiggling, but I'm trying to see which nodes I need to adjust, and that can be really hard. Even though this bridge doesn't even have that many nodes. But I managed to find them all. Also, the bottom part of the bridge needs to be raised. We don't want our bridge to be this thick. Now that I'm satisfied with the shape of the bridge, I move it to the exact location and copy and mirror this section to finish the whole bridge. Here I'm being stupid. Before placing these pavement squares, I should have rotated them 90 degrees. The darker areas of the texture really shows the direction of the traffic on these roads. So the way I'm placing them now makes no sense. But on the other hand, this will make sure I will have something to do in the future. Also, this corner can be looking great when using cube pieces. I'll show you in a later episode. But aside from that, I will not show you the placement of every single square of pavement in the city. That would be really boring, and I want to focus more on how the city comes together as a whole. Not just the placement of every single asset. So let's jump forward to paving the bridge. At first I placed the same texture PO squares and tried to adjust them to match the slopes of the road, but that totally didn't work out. So I decided to go with some decals instead. They don't look perfect to me, but for now this is the best I can do. Maybe I should investigate how to make decals myself. But I'm quite short on time as it is right now, with my job, this build, my other YouTube series, Heimstadt, and social life in general. Yes, I do have a social life. In the end, it doesn't look too terrible, and let's just leave it with that. We'll go and surround this corner of buildings with some canal walls as well, so the backs of these houses will be right on the water side. The curve may not look super smooth, but that's what you'll get with these straight sections. I think it still looks decent enough. Off camera, I will adjust the shape of these sections slightly so that they don't overlap anymore and don't cause any flickering of the textures. Here I place the walls right under the back building of this pub. I think it looks really nice, being effectively a part of the canal wall. This last section I will not finish completely, as I still have to work out how I want it to be next to this bridge that is not yet a bridge, but still a dirt road. After I've placed some walls on the other side as well, it's time to lower the land and place some more of the terraforming network, as we don't want any grass between the walls and the water. After copying the pavement over to the other side and moving the houses just over the railing of the bridge, it is time to let the water in. Talking about the water, it is way too blue at the moment. This is because I'm still using the Relight Cool LUT at the moment. In the cinematics as well as later episodes, you'll see me using the Relight Neutral LUT. This makes the water darker, with a little brownish tint to it. It'll look more realistic than this bright blue stuff. While the water is settling, we might as well copy the bridge over to the other side. And after that, this episode comes to a close. I hope you have enjoyed it, and that maybe I have shown you a few tips and tricks to improve your building skills or inspire you in any way. If you have any questions or suggestions, do leave them in the comment section. And if you liked this video, please give it a nice thumbs up. And if you want to be notified of future episodes, try clicking that bell icon. Sometimes it actually works. From now on, I will try to alternate between this series and my other YouTube series, Heimstatt. But as it goes with these things, I cannot promise everything will go as planned. My apologies in advance. But for now, have a great day and hope to see you next time. Bye bye. I'm using the railway viaduct. I'm using the railway viaduct. Probs? I'm using the railway viaduct props, but I'm quite short on time as it is right now, with my job, this build, my other YouTube series, Heimstatt, and I'm gonna try this again. But still a dirt road. Oh my god, my voice. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but my upstairs neighbors, they're walking around like a bunch of elephants. Terrible, terrible people.